have shepherded over have turned against me. They have broken the holy covenant between me and you. They have whored themselves with idols, whom they have crafted with thine own hand, and they have bowed themselves and worshipped these abominations. They have said, blessed be these idols, whom have led and provided for them 1,000 years. Since they have done this thing and taken my blessing and given it to the idols, my wrath is poured out upon the whole world. A decrepit sickness has been unleashed into the world. For all of their wickedness and worshiping death, they shall become decrepit things, spreading death. This is my judgment on all those who transgress my laws and who have defiled my covenant. Death. Death. But not for you and your brother. You shall stay here in my holy mountain as I test the entire world to see if they shall serve me or choose death. I have spoken, so shall it be.
Hello, and welcome to another episode, another telecast of the Word of the Most High Yah. I'm your host, Priest of the Most High, Lucifer the Lambew. Now, today we were supposed to be getting into, the last telecast, talking about getting into Deuteronomy, and we will, but today we're going to, this is going to be a shorter telecast. And we're going to be getting into the two notes class recruits that I gave you last telecast, all right, last class. So we're going to go deeper into these two notes that I gave you in regards to sanctuary cities and the Avenger of Blood, as well as the we're going to deal with the controversy that surrounds the 12 pi chart, right? And on a practical note, the answer to the 12 pi chart that's been floating around when it comes to the different 12 tribes of Israel, who they represent today, and whether it is whether you should be marrying, intermarrying with the pie chart people. Okay, all right, we'll get to that if there's time, y'all. Willing, if there's time. But first things first, I want to talk about the sanctuary cities and the Avenger of Blood. Now we know that there's a lot of stuff going on with that in today's world, with here in America, here in Babylon, our second Egypt, in the land of our captivity, Sodom and Gomorrah. There's this whole refugee crisis, supposedly crisis, going on, and ICE deporting so-called Mexicans or so-called illegals, and how much protests and riots are being caused because of refugee bans and cities that are refugees, basically sanctuary cities, and states that are becoming sanctuary states, and basically how all these different municipalities, all these different types of governments within the government are revolting against the government in declaring themselves basically sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. But let's go ahead and get in the Bible where all the sanctuary stuff started from anyway, because Esau is going nuts. The Most High is giving them a spirit of fighting one another and getting real feisty. So let's go ahead and take it back to where the scriptures say, and it does talk about that in Numbers. So before we leave Numbers, we got to get into it. All right, so turn with me to chapter 35, and we're going to read verses 11 through 15 to get it started. All right, and here we are. Verse 11. Then ye shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer may flee thither which killeth any person at unawares. So these original, basically, sanctuary cities are for people who commit crimes. The original sanctuary city wasn't for refugees. It wasn't for illegal aliens. It was for murderers. All right, so let's continue. And they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer die not until he stand before the congregation in judgment. You see, so if in ancient Israel, if you was tossing out a brick or something from your window, or if you were, or if your roof fell on somebody who was working in your, in your house, your hut, your whatever, your tent, whatever, and it killed them, well, you see, their family members or somebody that cared about that person could then become the avenger of blood, meaning it was reasonable for that person to want to you to die, for that person to want you to have your life taken away. And you have in Israel, they understood that it was a righteous thing for blood to avenge blood, but they didn't want a whole lot of vigilante stuff going on, because even though they understood that that was a righteous thing, the person who was accused of killing somebody, or the person who did kill somebody, or was responsible for somebody's death, be it accident or be it murder, intentional, that had to be determined by the congregation of God. That had to be determined by basically a legal status, legal deliberation in Israel. And so sanctuary cities were made so that the person who was, guilty, or shall I say the person who was suspected of killing a person, if they killed this person, they had a place where they could run and go to, where it was not legal for the avenger of blood to kill them. This place where they would go to would be a temporary stay, predominantly, until the high priest, until basically the congregation could be formed to hear the case. Right? Because if the guy wasn't in a sanctuary city, and the high council or the congregation was utilized to basically determine whether it was malice, whether it was done on purpose, whether it was done by accident, whether, you know what I mean? So so the council would decide basically whether this person's guilt and ultimately what this person's fate would be. But before that ever took place, if this person or suspect, or however you want to call it, wasn't in a sanctuary city, an avenger of blood could come through, kill him, you know, and not be held guilty. But we'll get into that as we go forward. Anyway, and verse 12, and they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer die not, until he stand before the congregation in judgment. And of these cities which ye shall give, 6 cities shall ye have for refuge. Ye shall give 3 cities on this side Jordan, and 3 cities shall ye give in the land of Canaan, which shall be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be a refuge both for the children of Israel and for the stranger and for the sojourner among them, that every one killeth any person unawares may flee thither. Now, another thing too, this has a lot to do with, you know, the teaching that the Most High had me already give you when it came to how the Most High in our land had one law, even amongst one law that governed Israel, and basically one law even over the strangers in the land of Israel, in the land of our nativity. One law for everybody. And here it's talking about the sanctuary cities, that basically the sanctuary city status applied to everybody. So Avenger of Blood couldn't kill an Israelite in these sanctuary cities, and an Avenger of Blood couldn't kill you know, a heathen, a Gentile that lived among us in these sanctuary cities either. Okay? You know, and that's, again, that's righteousness, the law of the Most High. But see, and we'll get into this a little more, but I just want to take a little side note. It's still on the same topic, but you see, the self-proclaimed white man in America, you know, killed our ancestors. And, you know, raped, robbed, murdered, lynched our people. And these same people, these same descendants of these people, will walk around thinking they're going to get raptured. Delusional as fuck. But see, the Bible is talking about the Avenger, and how the Avenger is going to go through and basically going to bring blood on the blood of our ancestors, basically the blood of our people that's been slain in this captivity. He's going to bring that blood upon the head of the Edomites. He's going to bring it down upon their own heads. And there's no sanctuary cities against the Avenger of Blood that's coming. When I say Avenger of Blood in the today's text, I'm not talking about some man. I'm not talking about, you know. And don't get it twisted. There's already Avengers of Blood in the sense of all these killings. I did a report on End Times Current Events. If you watch, hopefully you took a look at that telecast. But it was on, I think his name was Corey Ali Muhammad, who basically was possessed by these death angels, which these death angels are basically just avengers of blood. So there's an avenger of blood that's carnal, which is in the flesh, and then there's avenger of blood, which is spiritual. The carnal version, the historic version, I'm reading to you right now, that dealt with ancient Israel. But there's nothing new under the sun, and this precept is happening. We're seeing it happen even now, right? With these death angels. Now, the avenger of blood that will come upon this country is spiritual. Those avengers of blood is going to be basically the anointed. The anointed is going to take the role of the avenger of blood. And there's no sanctuary cities that the Most High recognizes here in Babylon. once the anointed are chosen, or once we see our first anointed, once the first anointed comes on the scene, there may be a period of time that may elapse because of the gathering of Israel and so forth, or whatever, or the destruction may be hand in hand with the gathering, which is just as likely. But nonetheless, it's going to be quick once the first anointed shows up on the scene, right? And there's not going to be any place where these Edomites or these other nations that have that the blood of the saints and our ancestors basically falls on them. There's nowhere they're going to be able to run or escape. There's no sanctuary cities again here in Babylon. Sanctuary cities that the Most High recognizes. All right. So let's continue hearing about this Avenger of Blood. Turn with me to same chapter 35, but we're going to be reading from verse 19 to 29 to get more of an understanding of the Avenger of Blood. Who he is, what he does, and what the rules, if any, which there are rules for him, what governs what he does. Okay, so verse 19. The Avenger of Blood himself shall slay the murderer whom he meeteth, or when he meeteth him, he shall slay him. So we already get through the scriptures that the Avenger of Blood has the capability, has the authority, has commission, so to speak, to kill murderers, people who shed blood. That's what the Avenger of Blood really meant, is what it stands for. And that's why sanctuary cities were so important in the context of what they were made for. They wasn't made to stop people from being deported. They wasn't made to stop people, illegal aliens, from getting kicked out. They wasn't there to stop all the garbage that they're claiming today in Esau's backwards kingdom. They were made so that if a person was accused of killing another person, that person that was killed, their family members, people who loved that person, people who cared about that person, cared about justice, wouldn't just come through and kill them. Because if they did come through and kill them, it'd be righteousness. But see, in order for the courts to be able to determine whether that person who was accused of killing even did the killing, or whether the killing was the difference between killing and murdering. Basically, was it self-defense? Was it by accident? Or was it malicious? Premeditated or unpremeditated? All these things have to be determined in a religious congregation type court of law. So in order for that person to make it to that hearing, sanctuary cities had to be enacted. But again, here in Babylon there is no sanctuary cities. So how are the other nations, these Edomites, these Gentiles that are here in America, when that first anointed person jumps off the page, jumps out, what's going to happen to them, right? Now you should know why. Now you should know that when the Most High says that they're going to, and he said it's written that these are the nations are going to cleave unto Israel. Now you know why, because we are the sanctuary city. We are. The Israelites, the ones the remnant that come out of Babylon. That's the reason why these other nations are going to be clinging to our foot and licking up the dust of our feet. Because if they don't come with Israel when Israel leaves out of here, it's going to be to the famine will go to the famine. Those to pestilence will go to pestilence. Those who die by the sword, aka the Avenger of Blood, will die by the sword. Those to go into captivity will go into captivity, and that's what they're signing up for when they go and they will come to Israel to serve and to leave out with us to the land of milk and honey. But this is why. This is going over in the spirit the conditions for which that's possible, the conditions for which that are going to be present when that goes down. There is no equality when it comes to these other nations and Israel. They're all guilty. Many of which, I mean, look at the transatlantic slave trade, which is how our people came to this country to begin with, which was also prophesied in the book of Deuteronomy. But we'll get into that, and I've already taught you, went over many of those aspects with you, recruit. We're going to be going over them again, of course, because once we get to Deuteronomy, we're going to go straight through chapter by chapter, verse by verse. That my notes have. Right, some chapters, not in Deuteronomy, but there's some chapters in the Bible that's very small, and I didn't make no notes on, that I may just skip over. Okay, but again, if you have any questions about even something that I don't cover, leave it in the comment section, and we'll get it. We'll get it. Y'all will. All right, so the Israelites, we're the sanctuary city. And there will be no sanctuary outside of us. That's why you see, in some of these Israelite camps videos, they got these Edomites bowing down to them, kissing their feet, kissing their boots, and so forth. And that's why you see this spirit coming up in these other nations. Some of the people who the Most High has given eyes to see, because those who refuse to serve Israel will perish, as it is written. And it's already come. We're already seeing it manifesting day by day in the flesh. Both the extrajudicial killings that are going on, as well as these Edomites and these other nations are getting broken. Okay? All right, so let's continue. But again, we are the sanctuary city. These other nations are going to serve, that want to live, that want, that the Most High has put in their heart to avoid the pestilence and the killing with the sword and famine. That want to avoid the avenger of blood. They're going to serve Israel. They're going to kiss the feet of Israel. They're going to bow down to the men of God. They're going to these other nations. They're going to crawl on their belly like a centipede in the presence of the children of the Most High. Or they're going to perish, as per the scriptures. Okay, so let me continue. Verse 20. But go back to verse 19, so you can hear that again. The avenger of blood himself shall slay the murderers when he meeteth them. The age-old battle between the forces of good
one of us will die.
And the powers of darkness have eclipsed, leaving the balance broken. The darkness has blocked the entrance to the holy mountain severing man's access to the Most High. Lucifer has been reunited with Sakuma, and not a moment too soon. The darkness is now in control of CERN's portal, and with it, all the powers of hell are spilling forth into this world. An unstoppable tide of demons at its disposal. No one or nothing will stand in the way of the Queen of the Damned. Beginning this summer, the Lampshades are reunited in the never-ending battle against evil. In the fourth installment of the Mirror Images saga, directed by Sakuma Z. Lambew, written by Lucifer D. Lambew, and Lambew's Brothers film, Mirror Images 4, Queen of the Damned. Coming soon. To the Lampshades Network on YouTube.com.
Murdered someone and therefore got on the Avenger of Blood's list. But if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without laying or weight, or with any stone wherewith a man may die, seeing him not and cast it upon him that he die, he was not his enemy, neither sought his harm. Then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these judgments. Okay, so if the person was a murderer and killed somebody, beat him up, killed him, laid in wait, and in that way killed them, then the avenger of blood was tasked to kill the murderer. But if the person got killed and the person accused, maybe he killed him, but it was by accident, it wasn't on purpose, he wasn't an enemy to this person, then the congregation judging the situation will determine whether or not it's lawful then for that person to die. And there you go. Verse 25. And the congregation shall... Well, before I go to verse 25, check this out too. Again, in the spirit and what's going on today. You see, the Edomites are guilty of their sins. You know, and the sins of their forefathers. They're killing our children in the street even to this day. But through slavery, rape, robbery, murder, lynching... throwing our people in jail, giving them death penalties, like a death penalty, like a 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy. Later he was exonerated, but two ladies already dead. You know, and they benefit from this system, so they're as culpable to the crimes of this system as the system itself, which is backdoor after backdoor of their faulty laws. So when these anointed are chosen, when the anointed come on the scene, you know, no wonder the Bible, it is written that basically any nation that's still left in Babylon that isn't basically covered by the Israelites as their sanctuary city is going to be put to the sword. Because the only one that can stand against the slayer of blood, the only one that can stand in the midst of, as a refuge in the midst of pestilence, you know, famine, and the sword that's coming from the Most High, is the man of God, is the redeemed Israel. And the congregation, just verse 25, and the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the avenger of blood. And the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge, whither he was fled. And he shall abide in it until the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. Right? So, once you get into once you go to the refuge, the sanctuary city, from the avenger of blood, you're going to stay there. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go to Israel, I'm going to go to the man of God, he's going to give me some little ha-da-doo-dah, and then I'm going to be able to go walk my merry way. No, it's not how it's going to happen. You know, when the anointed come on the scene and the killing starts, those are the other nations that, you know, have been or in the sanctuary of Israel, or in the sanctuary of the men of God, who are serving Israel and who basically are in under the dominion of the men of God. They're going to be in the sanctuary. They're going to be apart from the avenger of blood. But those that are not, they're going to be under the avenger of blood's power. They're going to be under, basically they're going to be target practice. Not really target practice, that's more. They're going to be given up. They're going to die. They're going to be destroyed by the anointed. And whatever various other traps and destructive tools that the Most High will employ during that period of time. Okay. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the avenger of blood find him without the border of the city of the refuge, and the avenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. Very important. You know, that means when the anointed are on the scene, and the avenger of blood is not just the anointed. I mean, it's also these death angels and these demons that the Most High is sending out too. Right? They're also under the umbrella of the avenger of blood as well. For these 2/3 of our people, you know, who are killing each other in the streets, and you know, who are not refusing to come back to the Most High God. Anyone caught outside of the sanctuary, which is redeemed Israel, which is the men of God, you know, from the Most High. Anybody that's not underneath them, that are still walking around in this world, still walking, you know, basically on this killing field, they're gonna be taken care of by the avengers of blood, which would include the anointed, which also in that time, which would also include these death angels that are going around even now, and these demons that the Most High is putting out even now. Just like the refuge is also active even now, right? I mean, the men of God are out there on those street corners, and it's a dangerous street corner every time they're out there. You know, you got the shootings going on, people getting killed, you know, but the men of God are out there because the Most High protects them, and they have their faith in the Most High. So they're already a refuge. We're waiting for the anointing for it to fully manifest in the flesh and the spirit, for the flesh and the spirit to culminate and truly come together holistically. But the culmination is already underway. It's already happening. It's not finished, right? It's not to the point where the Most High is like, it is done when it comes to the birth of the anointed. But you can see how it's happening. Because again, every time we're out there on the street corners, us here in Lambew Ministries and all the Akim out there are pushing this truth. They are protected, and they have been protected because they are the sanctuary. those of them who are chosen to be the anointed will also be avengers, will also be the avengers of blood, the anointed, you know. And they're also going to be the sanctuary as well, because of, you know, the fact that, again, the redeemed Israel is going to be the only place in the world where you can go where you're not going to see you're not going to be in threat of all the bloodshed, where there's not going to be fear permeating every corner of the society, which is happening now. You see Israel getting gathered, not gathered in fear, but in this truth and in the love of the Most High and the love of our people that He's giving us to have in our hearts. But the other nations, you're seeing fear permeating. Fear of Trump, fear of deportation, fear of you know, war. Okay. All right. And this whole not guilty of blood, see, that's very important too. The slayer of blood isn't, as long as they follow the rules, isn't guilty of blood. Meaning those death angels that the Most High sends out, you know, they have rules that govern who they can kill, who they can't kill, why they can kill, why they can't kill. And as long as they follow those rules, they're acting in the will of the Most High. That's why they don't touch the men of God out there doing the work in truth and sincerity, you know, in the spirit of the Most High. That's our faith. But again, if something were to happen, we know where our spirit's going, right? But that's the reason why the men of God is a refuge for these other nations, for Israel, for the lost sheep of Israel. But if you're in the sanctuary and then you try to dip it out of the sanctuary, if you try and go in and out kind of thing, if you're, you know, I mean, you can be given up to the avenger of blood, to these death angels, because that's what he's saying here when he's talking about how if they leave the city, if they leave the sanctuary for any reason, and a death angel or avenger of blood basically is there, that the avenger of blood can take him out and not be himself guilty of blood. And the avenger of blood find him without the border. I'll go to verse 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whether he was fled, so if the avenger of blood comes to the city border and they see the guy who was basically fleeing to the city, if he's outside the city, then the avenger of blood, he's within the avenger of blood's radar basically. And the avenger of blood find him without the border of the city of his refuge, and the avenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. When he says land of his possession, now he's talking about the Israelites, because only the Israelites have land that they possess in Israel. And the law of Israel, in Israel, applies to both Jew and Gentile and heathen living amongst Israelites. Right? But obviously the protection, as a precept, the protection only applies to the Israelites and those living amongst the Israelites in their land. In spirit, we know it also applies to us out there on those street corners. But the reason why the Most High had me relay that to you is because if you're not in the refuge, if you're as other nation, as these Gentiles and these heathens, if you're not bowing down and are subject to the Israelites, then you're not covered under the sanctuary policy. Because that's how it goes. That's what it is, basically. All right. There is no sanctuary cities that the Most High recognizes outside of Israel, outside of the Israelites, outside of us. And when it says that when the high priest dies and the guy can go back to his possession, they're referring to an Israelite, because the only body who has possession, that Most High recognizes, is an Israelite. 12 tribes of Israel in the land and the things that we possess, that the Most High has and will return to us. And that's what's going to happen in terms of even this exodus out of America, right? Because the Israelites are going to come out, and the Avenger of Blood, or these demons and the Anointed, is going to be slain, right? Because we know Babylon goes down, and 2/3 of our people go down, and that's pretty much the atmosphere how it's going to happen. And then when that period of time is over, or at some period of time through the exodus from America, the remnant, the 1/3, is going to enter into their land. And when they enter into their land, they're going to retake their possession. And they're not going to have to worry about the Avenger of Blood. They're not going to have to worry about anything in terms of like fear and being afraid and any of that stuff, because the Most High is going to do away with that in the land of Israel, in our inheritance. And that's what he's referring to here in the Spirit and as a precept. Okay, so let's go back to 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the Avenger of Blood find him without the border of the city of the refuge, and the Avenger of Blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. Verse 29. So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations at your dwellings. Your dwellings, again, where we live. Now we're living, the Israelites are living in America, aka Babylon, aka Sodom and Gomorrah, aka Egypt, our second Egypt. And, that's why Israel is separate and apart from Black America. Because Israel is the refuge, the men of God of Israel, who return back to the Most High's law, statutes, commandments, still living here in America. But those men of God, that's where the refuge is, not elsewhere, not outside. You can't run from this truth back to the Black community and think that you're going to still be protected. No, you're gonna be you'll be 2/3 like the Black community. The Black community is not the one being saved. The Israelite community is the one being saved. 12,000 so-called Negroes, which return back to the Most High's law, statutes, commandments to the best of their ability, and are chosen before the foundation of the earth to be the anointed of Judah. That's where the refuge is going to be. And the 1/3 that come out underneath them. Anybody else that aren't part of that, underneath the anointed, underneath Israel, redeemed Israel, is going to be, again, they're going to fall into the pestilence, into the famine, into the death by the sword, or captivity section. Okay. Verse 31. Moreover, and I'm going to 31 because I said we're going to read I was going to read 19 through 29, which I have, and I'm reading 31 through 34. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death. And ye shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are for blood. It defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for the Lord dwell among the children of Israel. So they take no pleasure in killing, even the murder. I mean, it is the law of the Most High, right? Now that I've taught that, y'all have to teach that lesson. Let me also say specifically that Lambew Ministries, both Priest Most High Sakuma Z. Lambew and myself, do not condone violence, murder and killing of any kind to the against the Edomites or these other nations, or even within our own nation. Now, of course, self-defense is something totally different. I mean, somebody's coming at you, you have a right to protect yourself. But I'm telling we're letting you know that we don't condone violence, because again, we're in captivity in the Most High God. We're waiting on Him. You know, you shouldn't kill people. You shouldn't hurt people. You shouldn't, take anybody's life unjustifiably, right? So even with the lesson of the Avenger of Blood, know that the Avenger of Blood is a spiritual thing. It's carnal too, don't get it twisted, but it's spiritual. It's spiritual. And the Avenger of Blood that we just went over, they were commissioned by the Most High to do what they did, right? And they followed the rules so that they themselves wouldn't be guilty of murdering, though that they themselves wouldn't be guilty of the very blood that they were shedding, that the blood that they would be shedding would be on the person to whom that blood was shed by. Right? And that doesn't take place here in Babylon, because we're in captivity on a carnal level. Those brothers killing each other in the ghettos, that's not the Avenger of Blood. Those are death angels, no doubt. But it's the Avenger of Blood who doesn't get punished for what he does, because he's a part of the function of judgment. Just like or similar to, say, like the judge who orders a person to death, to the death penalty. They go to the death penalty, they get electrocuted, or they get shot with or firing squad or whatever. The doctor who's doing the shooting, or the doctor who's providing the medication for the person to die, he's not in trouble in this system for killing that person, because he's just fulfilling the function of what the judges and what the all the judicial folks said to do. And it's similar like that, similar to that with the Avenger of Blood. Thank you. Thank you. I can't read. Let him go.
You should have killed me. You should have killed me, boy. Should have killed me. I'll get you. Get you. And your little bitch boy. Yeah, it's real. You must focus. You must allow your weapon to become a part of you.
The Avenger of Blood is fulfilling a function. As long as he follows the rules and he doesn't do it in malice. Meaning, you can't say to yourself, "Oh, you hate this person, whether this person is innocent or not doesn't matter." But you want to just, but the Avenger of Blood ain't gonna just kill him because you don't like him. There's rules, and we just went over those rules. But again, the Avenger of Blood does not exist in the flesh right now. Don't be walking around, unless you got a demon in you, talking about you Avenger of Blood, right? Because that's we're in captivity. We're not in the land of our nativity, and we're not redeemed. So, are they death angels going out there? Yes. Because they're enveloping people, they're possessing people, there were people going on shooting rampages and all that kind of good stuff because of those death angels, But that's Death Angel. The Avenger of Blood doesn't get punished for what they do, because they are the vengeance of the Most High. That's the anointed. They're not going to get punished for all the slaying that they're going to do, because they're going to be emboldened with the wrath of the Most High. Giving the wrath of the Most High out, they're going to be representing Him. And that's what the Avenger of Blood does. The Avenger of Blood represents the Most High in judgment. And that's the difference. But again, we don't condone any murdering, anything of the sort. All right, now let me go ahead and get to, because we only got a few little time left, but let me go ahead and get to the controversy that's going on with this pie chart. I heard a lot about it. One of the different camps created a chart that's been spread around all of Israel with the 12 tribes of Israel on it. And, talk about Seminole Indians, talking about Indians being gagged, there's all kinds of stuff. All right. Now, know that that Israel is a Negro nation. All right. Because we know for 100% certainty that the so-called Negroes are the tribe of Judah, and the tribe of Judah is the king's tribe. So, as goes the king's tribe, thus goes the nation. With the exception of maybe Ephraim, which is a cake unturned and is our rival, which in many ways refers to the so-called Mexicans. And when I say Mexicans, I'm really referring to the Aboriginal Mexicans, but still in all, Mexicans, because they're cake unturned, they're spoiled seed, as the scriptures say. But everything other than the so-called Negroes still have a little bit of, still has a question mark over that race, over that people. Okay? And let's get what the Bible says so that we can go ahead and answer that. All right. we're going to read chapter 36, verse 6 through 13. And it says, "This is the thing which the Lord doth command concerning the daughters of Zephaniah, saying, Let them marry to whom they think best. Only to the family of the tribe of their father shall they marry. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel remove from tribe to tribe. For every one of the children of Israel shall keep himself to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers." All right, now check it. If you're if you say you're a Udite woman, and you're the only Udite woman alive of your father. Say your father isn't. Say he had no sons, right? And we're getting ready for the return of our possession. We're getting ready to get the inheritance of the Most High. It's coming any day now, right? And say you're one of the you're part of a group that returns back to the land of milk and honey. If you marry, say a Mexican, any of the 12 tribe people, other than those so-called Negroes, and you have an inheritance coming to you, that inheritance is would go to your husband if you marry outside of your tribe. But see, the Most High, His will is not, even if the pie chart was true, the Most High, which we don't think it is, the only thing that is true that we know of is the so-called Negroes being the Jews of Scripture. Everything else is debatable, right? But if you were to marry one of those other tribes that they say that is on the pie chart, even if that person was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, your inheritance would go to them, because it would go to your husband. It wouldn't go to you. And there's no boyfriend-girlfriend garbage in Israel. You see, but the Most High said that we would all have our own, all the different tribes would have their own inheritance, and that their inheritance would move from tribe to tribe. So there was an answer to that already, even if their pie chart was true. And that answer is to marry within your fucking tribe. For Judah, and the other 12 tribes for the other 11 of the 12 tribes for the other 11 of the 12 tribes. Why? Because even if, I mean, that's just assuming, that's just speaking on the best case scenario, that person of that other pie chart that you're marrying is in fact one of the Israelites. On the worst case scenario, it's not one of the Israelites. They're fucking lying and they're wrong. Maybe they're lying, maybe they're just flat out wrong. Maybe there's a little bit of both. Now you've transgressed the will of the Most High. You might not even get your inheritance. Right? Right? That's why the Most High says, don't make somebody else's flesh your flesh. Just because these guys got a pie chart saying these are, the only Judah is provable in the scriptures through and through. Only Judah has a testimony that can't be gainsaid. Everybody else is fucking debatable. So you got those brothers who are, Indians or whatever, and they say on the pie chart that they're Gad. We personally don't necessarily believe that, because praise be to Yah, Gad is more like the Zulu clan, the Zulu tribe, which are still in Africa, but they have control over their nation, which the scriptures say that Gad will basically overcome in the end. So they overcame the British colonial rule, the slavery, and all that kind of good stuff, and now they have their own stuff back. So it better fulfills the scriptures as far as we're concerned when it comes to Gad. But does that mean that this Indian guy ain't even one of the 12 tribes of Israel? He could be one of the other tribes. They could have, the people who made the pie chart could have just been fucking wrong. They could have been another tribe, or none of them. But either way, they're out there doing the work. Praise be Most High. Let them marry within their own tribe, as the scriptures have described. It fixes all that. If an Indian, no matter what Indian tribe he comes from, marries another Indian from that very same tribe, then the laws of God have not been transgressed. Right? If he calls himself an Israelite, he calls himself an Israelite. If he wants to be under the bond of the law, let him be under the bond of the law. Hinder him not. If he wants to serve Israel, serve Judah, hinder him not. Because that's what the other tribes need do. Because Judah is the sanctuary. That's why the Most High says he's coming to Judah first. It's not Gad, it's not Reuben, it's not Levi, or any of those people who even think they're those things. It's Judah. Right? The men of Judah, the men of God from Judah. Let's come back to this truth and with sincerity, come back to the God of all such commandments and have a relationship with him. They're the sanctuary, not even the other tribes. Because the Most High is coming to us first. And the other tribes, they're not going to be collected to like the second and third call. But the way to end the controversy is to marry within your own tribe. That's what you should do. Because even if this Indian person isn't even one of the 12 tribes of Israel, he's still serving the Judites. He's still serving Israel. So you haven't transgressed. So him marrying within his own tribe and serving Israel hasn't transgressed the law. Right? If there was an Asian person that wanted to serve the men of God, they can serve Israel. That's Israel's Judah is their sanctuary. They can serve Judah. That's their sanctuary. But let them marry another Asian. A Japanese person marry a Japanese person. A Chinese person marry a Chinese person. An Edomite marry an Edomite person. Right? I mean, nobody's saying that they can't bow down to the men of God. We're in captivity, you know what I mean? Our kingdom hasn't come yet, praise the Most High. But if you want to bow down, I mean, who's going to stop you? If you want to lick the dust of our feet, who's going to stop you? If you want to humble yourself and go into subjection to the men of God, who's going to stop you? While there's time. But again, serving Israel is one thing. Marrying is a totally different thing. That transgresses the law. That is not to be done. To the best of your ability. In this truth, knowing the truth. Right? Alright, so let me continue. And every daughter that possesseth an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall be wife unto one of the family of the tribe of her father, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his fathers. And neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another tribe, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance, and inheritance passes through marriage. So we find ourselves in this captivity and a wiggy-ass 12 pie chart. Only thing we know for certain is Judah. That's it. But again, the Spirit testified. So these other tribes that have the spirit of being Israel, hinder them not. They have the spirit to come back to God's law, statutes, and commandments to the best of their ability. Hinder them not. They have the spirit to serve Judah, right? Hinder them not, because the Most High is coming to Judah, and we are the sanctuary for the other for the other 11 tribes that are of Israel that are serving us. We're the sanctuary for the Gentiles and the heathens that are serving us. And let them marry their own fucking people. That answers the question. That's the answer to the controversy. You ain't got to worry about the pie chart being wrong if you're marrying your own tribe. If a so-called Negro woman and Negro man is the one being married. If a so-called Indian man and Indian woman is the one being married. If a so-called Mexican woman and Mexican man are the ones being married. If a so-called Dominican man and Dominican woman is being married. If a so-called Jamaican man and Jamaican woman are being married. The law has not been transgressed, whether the chart is bogus or not. If it's bogus, the law hasn't been transgressed. If it's not, the law hasn't been transgressed. Because they're not the sanctuary. They're not the ones the Most High is coming back to first. It's Judah. And the daughters of Judah should be married to men of God of Judah. No one else, no other tribe. So then you ain't gotta, it answers the questions of worrying about color. You know, this person's light skin, this person's dark skin. Is this Mexican Hispanic, or is Hispanics are in? Is this person a Reuben, the tribe of Reuben? Is the Reubenites, or is this person in? Let a Mexican, right? Aboriginal Mexican, marry a Mexican. And they can both serve Israel, they can both serve the so-called, and they can both serve the Judites, right? The king's tribe, and they've not transgressed the law. But see, be wary of those people trying to use this confusion to try to justify interracial marriage, which is not of the Most High, which is not of the Scriptures. Beware of those people trying to use a faulty-ass chart to justify interracial marriage, when the answer is right here before your face, that you would not transgress the law, even in its truth. Because when the Most High comes back, He ain't playing with you. And some faulty-ass pie chart ain't gonna save you. And it is a sad thing when somebody who had no inheritance doesn't get no inheritance, but when somebody who had an inheritance don't get their inheritance. That's a sad thing. When you were in this captivity all this time, and the Most High comes back to give you your inheritance, and you're ineligible because of you using excuses and having excuses. To transgress His law, you're found stiff-necked even when He returns, even when He reveals Himself, to be judged and lose your inheritance when you should have received it. And even worse than that, somebody else who ain't got no inheritance, but because they've served the Most High and they've served Israel, served Judah, for them to get anything, where the children who should have don't. That's just as sad. And don't think it can't happen. Don't think it won't happen. Because that's written too. Right? And we'll get into that when we get into that. Further, we'll get into that more deeper later on. Alright, verse 10. Even as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the daughters of Zephadad. For Mahlah, Tirzah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, were married unto the father's brother's sons, and they were married into the family of the sons of Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of the family of their fathers. These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. That's what the Most High God says. That's how He answers the question of the pie chart. That's how He answers the question of who you can marry, even in this captivity, now that you know the truth, right? And that is within your tribe and within your tribe only. Thank you for watching. As the Most High says, the Spirit's spirited, but man doesn't live by bread alone, but by the very word of the Most High. That's with all this stuff coming up, man. Recruits, with your inheritance, right? You're right at the door. Udites, got to deal with that crazed black woman. Got to deal with that crazed Udite, you know. Do your homework. Descendant of the transatlantic slave trade here in America. So-called black woman, so-called African American, so-called Negro woman. Got to deal with her. Or no one at all. You know, I mean, of course, if you've already married one of the other nations, pray to the Most High and repent, and you know, I mean, and what can you do, right? Whatever the Most High puts in your spirit to do. No one's telling you to get rid of her. No one's telling you to do it. But Most High ain't no fool. You know, don't be like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend like I never heard this, and go and marry some other nation, any other nation. Even if that other nation's on that pie chart saying this is one of the children of Israel, the Most High is saying to marry within your own tribe. So it answers the question. Doesn't matter whether it's Mexican, Chinese, whatever they got on that pie chart. If they marry their own people, then the law hasn't been broken. Thank you for watching the Word of the Most High Yah. I'm your host, Priest of the Most High, Lucifer D. Lambew. And I will see you again next time. It's not destroyed, actually. What they would call this, they were whitewashed.
Okay.
During the Renaissance period of time, they basically took, the conquering nation basically took the image of Christ, which, you know, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, is a black man. And in Revelation they tell you what color he is because it tells you that. And they made him look white. And they made the Bible look white. What color is that? Jews are an olive color. Do you know what the word Jew comes from? Yeah, what the word Jew comes from? What's the word Jew short for? But you know that they're olive color, but you don't know what the name of them comes from. I'll answer that question. The name of Jews comes from the house of Judah. And the house of Judah, incidentally, are the Negroes here in America. We are from the house of Judah as put forth in the truth. There's nothing scriptural that tells us it's okay that you don't agree with it, because truth is truth whether you want to accept it or not. If you don't believe,
I know that, that's why I was tolerating you.
You don't have to tolerate me because it's not my truth. It's the truth of the Bible, the very book that you say you represent. See, you can say to yourself, I don't believe this aspect, I don't believe that aspect, but you're not going against me, you're going against the very book that you say you're here to preach, teach, and show us. Because they told me, I didn't write that, I'm not the author of that.
I'm not one of your church.
The author of that. I don't have a church.
Yeah, I'm not one of your stewards. I'm a teacher, so you know, I don't need you to try to take it.
Okay.
You understand that?
Okay.
Don't try to
You say that you're a teacher. Fine,
I don't want you to try to teach.
So when you say that you're a teacher,
Yes, sir.
the question is this. Okay.
In your mind,
As a teacher,
this is the question in your
sure,
mind.
but if you're a teacher, then you're here to
This is the question in your
teach.
mind.
So how can you teach if you can't answer questions which potential students may ask you? You're a teacher, so could you teach the $1 million question that's on the hearts and minds of the Negroes in this country, which is where they come from? It's in your book.